Was it the voice? Was it the fire burning in me? All of the noise turned into choirs of harmony. Left me with the pieces of forever that you broke. But since you left me alone, I've been high.
Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. Today I am sharing with you some of the meals that my family has ate over the last week. Now if you saw my previous video, you will know that this week is a little different for meals because usually I plan out all of our meals, all of our lunches, breakfasts, and dinners. And this week, I really did not have the time to do that. I went to the store and it was a little sporadic. I got just the stuff that we needed. And then I had intentions of going back to the store, but usually whenever I do that, I end up not going back to the store. And that is exactly what happened this week. So this week's meals are basically me just doing with whatever we have left in the pantry. So I did go grocery shopping. However, it was very, very basic. It was not anything compared to it usually is. And like I said, I did not have any plans going into it. So this entire week, I've basically been winging it. We are starting off today making a taco pizza. I have made homemade pizzas a trillion times. That is nothing new on my channel or for my family, but I have never really made like a true taco pizza. And recently we were at a family get-together where the family member ended up picking up a bunch of pizzas, and one of them that they got was a Casey's taco pizza, and it was really good. And so I kind of used that and whatever we had in our pantry as motivation for this meal. I'm starting off by making my normal pizza crust, and if you're looking for the recipe for that, I will have all of today's recipes down below in the description box. So I have that all mixed together, and now I'm going to cover it with a warm towel and let it rise until it doubles in size, which is about an hour depending on how warm your kitchen is. I like to put mine over on the stove, especially when I know that I'm going to have the oven going, because the vent is right over there and it kind of blows warm air onto the dough and it rises a lot quicker. While that is rising, I'm going to get started on the toppings. I'm going to start a pound of ground beef on the stove, get that browning, and then I'll add in some taco seasonings to make it more of a taco flavor. Now that the beef is cooked through, I'm going to drain it and add in some taco seasoning. I just used the normal Great Value kind, and it wasn't the spicy one or anything like that. You can obviously change that if you're wanting to do the spicier one, or if you're one that does not like taco seasoning. I know there are people where it kind of messes with their stomach. You can just do like some cumin, some garlic, some onion powder, stuff like that to kind of make your own, and maybe it wouldn't mess with your stomach as much. So either way, that is what I did there, just to give it that taco seasoning flavor. My pizza dough has now doubled in size, so I punched it down to get the air bubbles out, and now I'm going to cut it into 2 different pizza crusts. You can do just one extremely large pizza if you're wanting. Just note that this particular crust, it rises and it becomes very, very thick. I found that since doing this, that it makes a really good amount for 2 pizzas. And so that is usually what I'll end up doing. If you're wanting super thin, you can probably also stretch this to 3 pizzas. I have a couple of teenagers that help out with dishes, and they have managed to lose a couple of my pizza pans, so that is why I am using square pans, but tastes exactly the same, and sometimes I like to mix it up every now and then anyway. I spread the dough into each one of the pans, and then I put it in the oven to pre-bake before I put all the toppings on. I feel like that usually helps with the amount of toppings that I will be putting on it. I usually will cook it like 5 to 10 minutes. I really like for it to start to turn brown before I take it out and put the toppings on. For the toppings, I'm trying to keep in mind everything that we usually have on tacos. I'm also pulling from the taco pizza that we recently got from Casey's, trying to figure out exactly what I want to put on it. We usually put lettuce, and so did the taco pizza that we got. They also had diced tomatoes, and I love diced tomatoes on mine. So those are the toppings that we're going to be adding after the pizza cooks. The crusts have started to brown, so I'm going to take them out of the oven and put on the toppings. Now I'm starting with refried beans. I don't feel like the Casey's pizza had it, but I can't honestly remember. Again, I'm just pulling from our pantry and working with stuff that we usually have on tacos and that we have in our pantry. I could not remember if they used a pizza sauce or something else more taco related. We had one red enchilada sauce in our pantry, so I'm like, you know what, we're just gonna do that. We'll go with taco related. So we did that for the sauce, and then I'm going to do on one pizza, it will have olives and the other pizza will not. I have some family members that don't like olives, so this pizza we are not going to be putting the olives on. It will just have the beans, the enchilada sauce, the taco meat that we put on, and some cheese. And then I'll put that back into the oven to cook the rest of the way. And then I'll assemble the other pizza, which is basically the exact same thing. I'm just going to be adding some sliced black olives onto it. I know a lot of families do like pizza night for one day during the week, and I feel like this is a really fun way to like put a twist on that, because you can really make it your own and add all kinds of different things. It's just basically thinking a little bit outside the box and making pizza a little different than you usually have it. Just kind of mixing things up every now and then is great. It also takes one of those everyday tasks that us moms do, having to make meals and plan meals and everything like that. It can be so mundane, and it kind of just makes it a little bit more fun, putting a twist on it and changing things up every now and then. So I was kind of excited. I know it came out of nowhere, and it was a very last minute decision that we made for dinner basically all week long, but it makes it fun every now and then to not have to stick to the routine. Sure, having a list of meals is easy because you really don't have to put as much thought into it during the week, but winging it can also make it a little bit more fun than it usually is. The pizzas are now done cooking, so I'm going to add on the cold toppings. Now, if you're planning on reheating these or having really any leftovers, you might want to just cut the pizza and then have people add this topping on separately, because you can't really save the pizzas with all the lettuce on them. It wilts and it's just never good leftover. So that would be the only advice that I would have here, is just kind of having the lettuce aside and people adding that after it's plated.
Noise turned into choirs of harmony. Left me with the pieces of forever that you broke. But since you left me.
Here's how dinner turned out. It was such a fun evening doing it like this. It was like pizza night and taco night built into one, and the kids had so much fun with it. This is something I highly suggest if you're doing like a pizza night or a get-together. A lot of times we'll do like a get-together and do a pizza night where everybody makes their own. You could have also taco toppings on the side, and people could make their own taco pizza. Our next meal is going to be a very quick meal, but again, I am pulling from other things and I'm using a previous meal and I'm going to be making some beef stew is what I'm calling it. I know that this can be made a ton of different ways, but I'm kind of just working with whatever I have and trying to pull something together. So I did a pot roast with some potatoes and green beans the other day. We have some green beans, some of the stock left from that, and then also some of the pot roast meat. So I have that poured into this pot all together. I'm going to add in some beef broth, a can of diced tomatoes, and I'll also chop up some vegetables that we have in the fridge and add to it. Then I'll let this simmer low and slow for a couple of hours to really develop those flavors before we have dinner. I love doing meals like this where you take from one meal that you made and you turn it into another meal. I feel like it's kind of fun. It mixes things up every now and then to kind of think outside the box and do stuff like this, and not just have leftovers because I don't know if it's just my family or other families, but my family does not love leftovers. We tend to do a lot of leftovers for lunches, and my kids don't always love that. So it's fun to mix it up every now and then and do a different meal, but from the same ingredients. I know I said that this can be done a ton of different ways. I was going back and forth with exactly what type of base I was wanting this to have. Now, my mom, whenever I was talking to her about this, she suggested doing more of a tomato base because I guess that's what she does. She does like V8 juice in it. I was wanting more of a beefy, like beef broth base. So I was wanting it more of a beef stew and not so much of a tomato base. And I figured my family would probably like that as well. So instead, I just did mostly beef broth and then added in the can of diced tomatoes, and it was the perfect mixture. This is how it turned out. It was a delicious meal, and it was out of another meal, which I absolutely loved. If you saw my previous video, you have seen bits and pieces of this meal, and I don't know why it cracks me up so much. I just think because the chicken looks so silly like that. But so when I was talking to a family member about this, they actually thought that I did like that whole beer chicken, I think, where like you put the chicken on a beer can. I think you can probably do it a ton of different ways too, but this is what I actually saw randomly on the internet when I was scrolling one day, and I'm like, that is so interesting. So that is actually how I'm going to be cooking the chicken, is in a bundt pan standing up, and I'm going to dice up some potatoes. I'll season them really well, and I'm going to put them in the bottom of the bundt pan. And what that does is as the chicken is cooking, the juices are going down into the potatoes and giving it a really wonderful flavor. I also love how the chicken turned out. It had great skin. It was nice and juicy. It was amazing. I will absolutely be cooking our chicken from now on like this. My last video also included me making a loaf of this really delicious cheddar jalapeno bread. I did not include that in this video, but if you are interested in making that with this meal, because it did pair very nicely with this meal, you can go back to my last previous video from Wednesday and it will be on there, a step-by-step, and also the recipe will be in the description box of that video if you're looking for it. In the shadows, I have the potatoes all diced up, and I tried to keep them in pretty similar sizes so they cooked fairly evenly. I'm going to be adding in the oil and then other seasonings to go with this. Now you can pretty much make this your own and add whatever variety of seasonings you're wanting to do. I started with salt and pepper, and I did that really well because I wanted to make sure that they were seasoned really well with that. I did garlic, onion powder. I went in with some parsley, just a variety of things, mix it up really well, and then I'm going to put it in the bottom of the bundt pan. You could also add in other vegetables like carrots or celery, anything like that that you're wanting. You just want to make sure that you leave enough room for the chicken to be able to sit on the middle of the bundt pan. And I didn't point out earlier, that is why I put foil in the middle so it's covering and the juices don't go through the pan. So you'll put foil on and then you'll put the remainder of the stuff to make sure that the juices don't go through the pan. I figured it would be easier to put oil on and all the seasonings while the chicken is on a cutting board before I actually put it standing on in the bundt pan. So that is what I'm doing. I'm adding some oil, brushing it on all over. I did the back and all over the front, and then I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. Again, I also did go in with a chicken seasoning, and I don't really know what's in that. It's just literally the generic chicken seasoning that you find at the store. So that is what I put on it. Also, that is what you're seeing here. It's just, I did go pretty heavy with it to make sure that it was seasoned very well, and because I wasn't going to be adding any other seasonings. I rubbed that mixture all over the chicken and made sure that it was evenly distributed and fully coated. Then I went over, washed my hands, and I'm telling you here that I'm going to be putting the chicken onto this piece of the bundt pan. You're wanting to make sure that you kind of stick it right up its bottom end and have it fit to where it is supported and it's not going to be flopping over. You'll also want to make sure that your oven racks are put all the way down, and that way it will fit in there nicely. So here's how it will look before it goes into the oven, and I think it's these videos that actually crack me up each time. I mean, it's not even funny, but it makes me think of that one video where it's like, look at him sitting like a distinguished gentleman. That's what runs through my head, and it makes me laugh every time I see these on video. Here's how it looks after it has cooked for a couple of hours. I want to say it cooked about 3 hours at a lower temperature. I was kind of going up and down with the temperatures because I was also cooking other things, but it was at like 350 and a couple of hours. The potatoes were great, and I served it with just a simple side salad and then the cheddar jalapeno bread. Again, this was another meal where I kind of just pulled it together. We have had this chicken in our deep freeze for a little bit, and pulling together, the potatoes, I usually always have that on hand, and salad stuff, I just dealt with whatever I had, and it turned out great. We are moving on to the next meal. My husband actually picked Salisbury steak. This is one of his favorite things, and I don't make it too often. I do like making it during cooler weather. I think it's just one of those like homier meals, and so it just, every time it's like cooler, this is one of the meals that I like to make. He also specifically asked for it because it is our anniversary. We have been married for 15 years. It's crazy to even say that, but because it was during the week, we weren't going to be doing anything special until the weekend, but we still wanted to have somewhat of a special meal. Again, I did not go to the store though, so none of it was planned, and we were just going to pull together with whatever we had. So we had a bunch of ground beef on hand, so we figured, you know what, let's just make some Salisbury steak and potatoes, and we'll pull some vegetables out. Again, that was another thing that I was kind of just, what do we have on hand that I can make? I started with dicing up the potatoes for mashed potatoes and getting those in some water on the stove. Now I'm going to be getting the pan ready for the beef patties that will be the Salisbury steak. Now I've been making this for a handful of years, and I kind of always just make it this way, and that's what works for me. I don't know if there are other ways of doing this, but this is just how I have always done it. So in a large bowl, I have a pound of ground beef and a pound of ground turkey. I'm going to be combining that with 2 eggs and some plain breadcrumbs. Now, I don't even usually measure this. I kind of just will eyeball a certain amount, like half a cup to a cup, depending on how much I have, and then seeing if I need to add more. That's usually just how I do it. So that is what I did there. I poured some in. I'm going to season it. I like to do salt and pepper, and then I feel like a good amount of garlic does really well with this meal as well. So I usually will add in a decent amount of garlic. I also added in about a teaspoon of onion powder, and then last second I decided to add in about a teaspoon of parsley. So you'll see me adding that in just a minute, and then I'm going to go in with my hands and give it a really good mix to combine everything together. Now, I don't always love doing that, but I feel like it is one of the best ways to combine all the ingredients. That's something I also do with like meatloaves and stuff. I feel like you just have to go in with your hands and get it all incorporated, and that way you also know if you need to add in more breadcrumbs or anything like that. So that is what I'm doing, and then I'm going to go in and form the patties and put them onto the pan. I don't cook them all the way through. It's mostly just cooking the outside, and then I'll flip it, cook the other side, and then I'm going to put them in a big pan to bake in the oven. You could also do that from that point on in a crock pot, but if you know me, I can never plan that much ahead, so I ended up doing it in the oven, and that's kind of what I usually end up doing. I am not at all uniform about this. I try to make them about the same in thickness, but in terms of if they are the shape of a patty or if they're not, I really don't care. It's not about perfection. And I don't ever bother with that. But if you are, you can totally measure these out by using, like a scoop and having them all about the same size and then pressing them out to form a patty. From here, I am putting them into a pan with a little bit of olive oil, like I said, just to cook on each side before I put them into a baking dish to cook the rest of the way in the oven.
You've been lost and alone in the city of lights, I know. Getting hot, feeling low, and it's out of your control. You should know that I won't leave you. I'll stay beside you. I'm never letting you go. You've been lost and alone in the city of lights.
You will notice as I am moving the patties from this pan to the baking dish that I do end up stacking them on top of each other because I just don't have enough space. I don't have a big enough pan, and I am not about to dirty another dish. This is kind of how I always do it, and it always works out just fine. So I don't notice any difference. You can, if you have a giant casserole dish, you can lay them in one layer, but just know that if you don't, it is absolutely fine to layer them and it still turns out just as good. The potatoes are now done for our mashed potatoes, so I drain them, and in this pot I put half a stick of butter, I put some milk, some sour cream, salt, and pepper, and now I'm going to mash them up and then set them aside until the rest of dinner is done.
You've been lost and alone in the city of lights, I know. Getting hot, feeling low.
I have the last beef patty cooking in the pan now, so while that is cooking, I'm going to start on cooking the onions that go over top of the baking dish. So what I did is I just sliced up onion rings. It was just one onion. I sliced them up into rings, varying sizes, but mostly kind of thin. And then I'm going to cook them in here in all the same little grease and giblets that I cooked all the beef in, and cook them down just slightly until they start to brown. And then I'm going to put them over top of the beef patties in this baking dish, and then we will get the gravy together and pour that over top. Everything will cook in that gravy the remainder of the way in the oven. For the gravy, I usually will do 2 packets of the brown gravy mix with 2 cups of water, and then I kind of just pour it over and cook it like that. However, I usually will also include mushrooms in this dish. However, I didn't have any, so what I did was in the gravy I also stirred in 1 can of cream of mushroom to add to that, and I poured that over top. So that is what the chunks you're seeing are. They're like the mushrooms from the cream of mushroom, and it looks very, very soupy, but that is just because the gravy has not cooked down. So you'll put that in the oven and you'll let that cook down, and it turns out perfectly. While that was in the oven, I went searching in our deep freeze to see if there was anything else I could pair with dinner. I was also looking for a vegetable. I ended up finding some Texas toast, so I'm going to throw that in the oven to cook with dinner. And then for our vegetable, I ended up just sauteing some frozen broccoli that I found and some cherry tomatoes that I used earlier in the week, and it ended up being a delicious side as well. So this is how it turned out. The gravy turned into more of a gravy, and the rest of the meal really came together. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me during another one of these cooking videos. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.